recovery becomes more popular, the compliments flow, and I cross between the wave of fame that is coming versus the quiet of being vulnerable to a few right now. Maybe DR is just a form of rejection therapy, putting out there the times love rejected me and I rejected love in hopes we can finally meet the right way. Thus, color me surprised when somebody said what I was feeling better than I could have. You're angry. You're not sad. You're angry that he used you, said my new fan / an old friend of my mother's that was listening to the podcast and loved it. I was delighted and intrigued by the specific word used. I never put it in those terms, but you cannot spell abuse without use. And that was what my father did. He used his literal child, an innocent soul, to trauma dump and tear me apart for the sheer pleasure of his demons. The whole time of doing Daddy Recovery, I wanted to feel empowered enough to call my father what he was, evil. Yet even acknowledging his villainy comes with painful hiccups because betrayal cannot happen without trust. And there came a point where I kept on trusting the untrustworthy. What I hate and riles me up is how much he enjoyed abusing me. It disgusts me and makes me feel a darkness that I know is his because my father could only either destroy someone or protect them from his destructiveness. But his very life was defined by his inability to create anything pure and good without a scheme, lie, or pending disaster that he swore stemmed from his own childhood abuse. Yet that was my fear. He was such a man-child in that it did not matter if he was 70 and had over 6 decades of ruining women and 5 of ruining himself. He was still mentally a wounded boy that hated to admit he liked to wound. What could possibly make me different if he gave me his wounds? My father solidified his evil and enjoyed it in a way that I did not want to judge because I'm tired of thinking I have a right to deny who someone is or even think I can change and pacify it by being some sort of false jury. Let his life handle him. He was a narcissist, a bigamist, a fiend, a con man, and an abuser of women. And even the few roles he could have played well, like lawyer and dad, he tainted, and permanently so. In the end, he enjoyed being a criminal. And I'm just upset he made me his crime. He could have left me alone, like he left so many others. He could have put on the kind mask he swore he placed out of fear of his other wife and children. But he chose to reveal his demons to me and used me to hug them and even rebuild his reputation to the ones he swore were his demons, like his other families. That is what I was to my dad, family. That is what I was to my dad, his demon hugger. And I never deserved such a cruel role. All right, let's heal. My father, one of the things I've accepted is not only that my father was a criminal, but he really did enjoy crime. And I have an episode coming up. My father used to talk like a godfather. He would he would just get, what is this mook? You rat? Are you ratting on me? Like he would get this very strange Italian godfather accent and start saying mob boss. And my mother put it perfectly. I don't know why he thinks he's the godfather. He has no association to God and he's barely a father. And it was so funny when she said that because it was true. Like my dad my dad was like a pastor, I preach for God because he pays me. But, obviously it's the one downstairs hooking him up. Am I right? And he just attached to images, never to realities. And when I look back at how obnoxious he was towards me and just really perverse and weird, it's hard because he was always who he was. And I framed my identity and my soul around that, despite the fact that I was always better than him. I mean, he was a loser in the sense of he never knew how to love and be loved. He always plotted. He always wanted to hurt somebody or hide that he hurt somebody. Hide one of his women, hide one of his kids, hide. He lived his life in hiding, yet he loved to be seen and he loved to be flashy. And the dichotomy of being so emotionally dark, but so desperate to be seen as light, it not only crushed our relationship, but it crushed me because I was what he used to for that image. I was what he used to look like. He, by the time I was 4, and I've said this a billion times, he was villainizing me, and particularly to his other family. Um, and families, right? Lord knows what we've discovered or will be discovering, right? With my dad, trust me, the sky's the limit, or the families are the limit, right? And what was wild is that I do what one thing that Daddy Recovery has helped me accept is I resented my father for turning my siblings against me. But what I see is that they did in some ways have their own selfishness and self-centeredness. And they had this kind of F her mentality because he went from leaving them without lights, not paying the bills, just disappearing to suddenly paying for all their colleges and trying to get them a networks. And he never had that redemption arc with me because my mother didn't demand it from him. He didn't fear my mom. He actually praised her for always holding compassion with him. And it's wild because I always bring up those damn love letters. I'm so glad I saved them because let me tell you something. I didn't want to save my recordings of my dad or those love letters, but now I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And I didn't want to because I just hated hearing me cry and I hated hearing his voice and how stupid he was towards me. And in general, because if you abuse a child, it's not just that you're evil, you're an idiot. Love, there is nothing purer than a kid. And nothing should be purer to you than your kid. And when my mom's friend, which I think would have murdered my dad, because my dad, one of the things my dad loved that my mom maintained was the good image of him to his friends. Because I tell you, the man, his life was a PR campaign and should be studied at marketing classes. Um, and his he was just so disappointed, and he goes to me, I listened to your podcast. He went to my mom and said I ended up hating him, and I thought he was a great guy. I thought I couldn't believe he was that way, and then he spoke about his own paternal issues and the importance of this podcast, and it made me feel a lot of relief because part of why I'm doing Daddy Recovery is that I'm trying to heal me and recuperate the parts of me my father erased so he could keep on abusing me. The part of me that is just really lovely and loves to love. The part of me that is very forgiving and kind and isn't always in a panic. The part of me that is super creative and talented and just doesn't and loves that to be creative and talented so much doesn't need validation. And it was a slow erosion of my soul that happened in hanging out with my dad. And what I realized is he made me his demon hugger. My dad held no filter with me. That's why he aged me. That's why he verbally assaulted me. That's why he financially took from me, stole all that. He had no guard, in part because he didn't, again, my mother didn't demand it from him. My mother was involved in the PR campaign, no matter which way she frames it. And he thought that she loved him for that because she held his image. And that's the only thing my father valued in life, his image, how people looked at him, and not necessarily his true form. And I saw his true form. That was my unfortunate blessing. And I hated that he just dumped all his demons and his negativity on me because he could and he wanted to. The fact that he wanted to and enjoyed it, that's what really makes me angry and disgusts me. And I mean, when I say that he's evil, he was. But what I really am trying to say is, we do have this way of either refusing to call someone evil and giving and pacifying their malice and reimagining them as wounded children, which is what my dad did. I mean, the man could be 100,000 years old and will still be talking about his mommy issues when he was 8. And that kind of belief that your childhood is an adult for how poorly you is an excuse for how poorly you lived your adulthood is what terrified me. How many years will I hold myself back because my dad held me down? And I, my father, there's just no hiding that generational trauma is real, and he's a descendant of his mother's trauma, of his father's trauma, even though he never met his dad. And that, what to me shows me is that I come from a line of people, particularly my father's side, that refuse to heal themselves and refuse to believe that they were harmful to others because they swore that there was a bigger bad and they faced it. There's no way I can be a father that abuses his child. My mother abused me. There's no way I abused my son. I was orphaned, like my grandmother was orphaned. There's just this kind of concept that all the suffering I suffered, there's just no way that I would cause it or reshape it or cause it in some form to someone else. And it was really annoying and devastating. And the complexity of that, like it's not just sad, it's enraging. It wasn't just devastating, it was super annoying hanging out with him. Ugh, and he never grew, he never changed, he never grew up. And I had to grieve the fact that I will never have a dad. Like, I never had a good dad. I had a horrible father, and in the end, I had no father. And that, he did that to me. And that was so evil and malicious and cruel. And the only thing that I know and I have guarantee is his karma is the fact that he will never experience true love because he never told the truth. Never told the truth to a single person in his life. I know secrets about him that his kids would be shocked, that his grandkids, that his other families, his other wives would be shocked. Wife. And they wouldn't believe me because the image was good. But he gave me the reality. And I love that I have the record, but I hate that I have the history. You know what I mean? Good to know that you have the proof. Horrible to know that you needed the proof for the crime. Look at me talking like him. Italian mob boss. But it was so good when he said, "You feel used." And it was so appropriate because my father used me to comfort him. My father used me to rebuild his reputation with the people that he wanted to look reputable with. He wanted them to love him. He wanted that rush of seeing people fall for his lies. I'm a good man. And at the end of the day, they didn't care who he destroyed because it was across state lines. The perks, the perks, the perks. But yeah, man, it was such a good way to put it. Thanks to my mom's friend, used. Yeah. You can't spell abuse without use. And he used me as a punching bag. He used me as a PR campaign. And I really did just love him and wanted to be loved. And he was so worthless of it. Even the people that loved him, in the end, they discovered, all of them, that there was no point to loving him. He was just empty, a vacuum, a hole. And that hole would draw you in. And I understand why in the end a lot of people fooled themselves into erasing his sins and enabled him to sin more. I'm taking the hardest path. I'm taking the hardest path and realizing my dad was evil. Because I've seen it happen to a lot of people who were abused by their dad. They do this revisionist history of kind of, they live for that one day he took you live for that one day he took you to the baseball game. And you ignore the 20 times he hit you with the baseball bat. And it's hard. It's hard to face the bat. It's hard. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. So I get it. I get it. But that's why men like my dad, the Mr. H's of this world, succeed and scheme, and like Donald Trump win the presidency. They are relying on you lying to yourself about them so that they can continue thriving on your grave. But what could I say? I just don't die. I'm too fierce. I'm too fierce. Oh, God. Now I'm doing the Italian mob boss voice again. I'm just too strong. I'm too strong. All right. Read daddyrecovery.com. Check out deandrewreviewsitall.com. And check out Herdin on all music platforms. Let's get rid of these Mr. H's in our lives.